Hey guys, here's a sneak peek at my jazz band blend course. So I've got all these modules kind of created here, um, and I'm just going to kind of click through real briefly just to kind of show you. So the very first thing that we'll be doing after the first two class periods, so starting on the third day of class, which will be the Monday, the 14th, we will jump into a Jazz by the Decades playlist, and we'll go through and we'll do some synchronous content. So they might actually be able to see this content before class, before we get to this day in class, but I want them to wait until here. So I've got a little note. Takes us to a couple of different timelines that I've made that they can go through. And again, they'll do this live in class and give them some stuff to look at. And then, then after that, they'll come over here. They'll take a very short 4-question quiz that will get them to think about the stuff that they looked at there. And then they can submit that to me. And then, later on in the semester, we'll actually have a test over all of the recordings that are on that list. So you can see here that I've made a quiz here inside of Blend. And so there's that. And then just going back briefly to that actual page itself, what I've got in here are lots of recordings. So I have lots of MP3s that I've already put in here with a little bit of historical or biographical or context in there, and it goes through about 9 or 10 decades, from the 20s or the teens all the way until 96. So about 10 decades there total. And then they'll have a quiz over that later on in the semester in September. But we'll continue to return to that information throughout the semester. This is some of the stuff that I've got here in the jazz band's All-State Etudes stuff. One thing that I'm interested in showing you is this Flipgrid assignment that I created. And basically, the purpose of this assignment is for them to show themselves practicing a chunk so that we can give each other feedback on how they're practicing and so forth. Got an inspirational photo of old Charlie Parker there. So I'm excited about that one. We'll keep coming back to this one over and over again. It's intended to be short clips, just 30-second clips or maybe, a minute clips of them practicing something on repeat and see, we can kind of give each other feedback on what we notice. And then of course, I've just got the etudes themselves in there. And I've already clipped in all of the music for them so that they can find it here. And you can see here that we've got like this, right? And then I can go back up here and minimize that. And then there's some other play-alongs and so forth that they've got access to. And most of that, as you can see here on the timeline, is going to take place up until the 14th. And then this is the one that I'm maybe most excited about, is influential swing era musicians, which will take us all the way through to December. I've got discussion boards set up here to start it off. And then so the idea is that over the course of the semester, they're going to listen to a couple of starter recordings of each of these influential swing era musicians. And then if they have to choose 3 of a total 10, and if they choose, then they can go in here and they can click on this assignment. And in here, they're going to be able to post the URL for a slide deck that they create on learning about that about that musician. And we'll keep coming back to this in class all the time. So it'll be a way for us to, you know, have things to discuss as a class when we're synchronously, and then we'll have homework for them to be working on throughout the semester. And then this is my jazz pedagogy page. Basically, I'm gonna try my very best to do 2 split screen video projects, kind of like what we saw in one of the Fine Arts PD today. And I've got the criteria and sort of the timeline already mapped out for how they're going to do it. So you can see I've got the bass player submitting their recording first on October 5th, and then that gives me a few days to give them some feedback before they hand it over to the drummer, and then the drummer will record with the bass player, and then a couple days later the piano player will record with that. And then once I get this starter track, this composite rhythm section track together, then I send it out to the alto player, the trombone player, the trumpet player, and then they record their parts with it. And then after those 3 kind of lead players get their parts lined up, then I hand it over to the rest of the wind players, and then they do everything, you know, along with those recordings. And then we'll do the same thing with another song here, Take the A Train. And then you can see here that I've also got some improvisational skills that we'll be working on. And in each one of these PDFs, there's the melody to the song, which in this case is a pretty simple melody here, just you know, not too much. But then I've got the chords and the scales matched up here so that they're going to be able to practice these, and I'll be giving them feedback in class throughout the semester. So that eventually on that slide split screen project, what they'll end up being able to do, in addition to just the basic tracking of their own part, eventually they will record themselves improvising over a chorus by themselves. And that'll take us all the way through to December for them to submit those recordings of the improvisation. And then I have another resource page here of ways to structure your practicing so that you're learning things in, you know, practical ways. And I won't go into that one. And then the last one that's pretty fun, or at least I hope so, is going to be this Talking Jazz series, which is a series of recordings from the 80s on a radio show that a guy named Ben Sidran had. And he had at the time access to some of the pioneers of the music that were still with us in the 80s. And you can see names here like Max Roach and Art Blakey and Tony Williams and Sonny Rollins, still alive, Phil Woods, and so forth. And so these are all interviews recorded live on air back in the early to mid 80s. And each one of these has its own discussion board. And then I have a timeline by when they need to start listening to those interviews. And then they have to, by the 17th, they have to at least listen to the Art Blakey interview and then start discussing and, you know, sharing things on the discussion board. So anyway, I wanted to share kind of what's going on with my Jazz Band Blend page in this video, just to give you guys a sense of how I'm thinking about everything. I'd love to see some of your own pages. So if you just want to make me a co-teacher so I can pick up some tips from you, please do so. And otherwise, that's the end.